red, you got the blue, and a little white. We got America.
We do. Oh, there it is.
There you go. America.
Marca.
Oh, I was going to pretend I knew what I was doing tonight because Eddie Brill's here, but the truth is we don't know
Yeah,
what the hell
that's
we're
perfect.
doing. Good evening, good evening. Thanks for clicking us on here tonight. You are back with us in the Cars and Comedy Show. Thanks for choosing us. My name is Jay. We've got Nicole over there. We have got a great show for you this evening. In addition to whoever is on Instagram, we have this guy as our guest tonight. We have comedian. We have, well, you know what? Actually, the truth is he's got a history that's, we're going to get into it. I sound like Mike Chisholm. It's hilarious. I got to stop watching his show. I'm picking up too much. But the truth is, we're so excited because of the Letterman connection. This guy worked for Letterman for years and years and years. The Letterman show related. He was the warm-up person. He booked all the comedians we saw. We're going to talk to him tonight, Mr. Eddie Brill. In the meantime, the only person who might be more excited than me is that guy right there in full HD. What's up, Mike?
Hey, everybody. I'm very, very excited about this. Second guest on the Letterman podcast is now the guest on Cars and Comedy, and the circle is now complete. This feels great.
It was the Tom Dreesen episode the other day. I was sweating before we started. This is one of those. And then I know, you just saw on the monitor there, you may be saying to yourself, gee, is Jay's nose a little redder than usual? Yes, it is. And if you're wondering to yourself, oh, I wonder if that hurts. It does. Yes, it does. I think we're on the last day of it, whatever it is. But it's uncomfortable, and we're going to pretend it's not there from here on out. So now that I've gotten that out of the way. Shazam, Mike, thank you for being here. Eddie Brill, we're going to get to you in just a couple minutes. Nicole, the pretty girl over here, is up, and Will is going to start the show right now. Take it away, Will. Kevin, you gonna buy a Beamer? How's it going? Great. You too. For real. Quit farting around with all your toys. I know. All right, get the Instagram audience over here. Welcome back, everybody. Hello. Sorry if I just blew out your eardrums. It's the Cars and Comedy Show. My name is Jay Ryan. This is Nicole Ryan. We are back. Tonight is Tuesday, July 19th, 2022. It is Tradecraft Tuesday. You've already got that going. I got a fresh one here for you if we want to open that up. If you want a sativa, that's the other one. The other one, if you want the sativa. This is the upper.
I want that one.
Yeah, that's what I figured. We'll open this up. This is our last one. I got to go get a re-up from our friends at Sticky Vape. but we'll get you fired up here in the meantime. If you are joining us for the first time, the pretty lady to my right is not only my wife, so hands off, but she has multiple sclerosis. And while she looks adorable in this chair, it's a hell of a thing getting her in it. So she medicates sometimes while we do the show, and that's what's happening right now. She's not just a ex-smoker who can't wait till the next break. All right, we've got a lot of stuff this evening, and the truth is I am a little bit nervous and excited because of our guest. Eddie Brill is here. I told you in the beginning. You're going to know him from so many things. I mean, I mentioned the Letterman show because that's why it's special to us today, but I remember when he co-hosted the Neil deGrasse Tyson show. I remember when I seen him on the TV show Louie, the old show Louie that was so good. I know, I don't know if we're allowed to like it anymore. I still love Louie. Whatever. Sorry. I'm going to get canceled because I like Louie. Anyway, you're going to know this guy. And more than that, the stories that he's going to tell are fantastic. And I don't even know what they are. But I watched him on the Shazam Mike's Letterman podcast. And I was riveted. I wanted more. And I was like, all right, could you please do our show? And he was like, I think I could make that work. Unfortunately, it's going to be from New York, where he lives this time. I hope to have him in the future. But in the meantime, I don't know why I did that. No. No. I don't know why I did that. In the meantime, I should tell you about 9/3, September 3rd. Cars and Comedy Live. This show with a lot of funny friends. Confirmed are Reggie Watts and Adam Ferrara, although we will be reaching out to you and hopefully adding to that list. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be dinner and a show down at the Marconi Auto Museum. It's going to be a lot of fun. Bring the desk and chairs. We're going to do the whole thing, and it should be a lot of fun. Might even get a curtain. I mean, who the hell knows? I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Gee whiz.
It sounds fun.
It's going to be great. I am very excited about this one.
I love that we're doing something unique to that community.
Yeah, I think so too.
Really cool.
I hope so too. I hope it is. I hope it's unique. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
We'll make it unique.
There you go. And that's the only thing I wanted to say for the hello. How was your weekend? Physically, everything's just sucking for you, but typically you look beautiful. Don't look sick.
Maintaining.
Yeah, hanging in there.
It's all I can do. Like, it's just not a good situation sometimes.
It's not a good situation. No. There's I saw a shirt the other day that said multiple sclerosis, and then it was all of the different check marks for recommend to do not recommend, and it's straight up multiple sclerosis, do not recommend.
Yeah.
If you can avoid it, don't get it.
I saw a meme like that the other day. They're ramping up again.
Oh, is that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm posting a lot of those. Are you seeing the ones that I post on the Autoimmunity page? Autoimmunity Foundation. Please follow the Autoimmunity Foundation.
I do, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Good. Okay, it's time to riffle and point. Mike, how are you, first of all? What's going on up in there in Canada? We haven't checked in with you, buddy. What's happening?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited to be here. I have to leave halfway through the show once again because I'm doing the music for the ball game. But with Eddie on here, and I had to be here for at least part of it. I'm so excited to riffle and point, and just grateful to be part of the crew.
Well, I'll tell you, you're all dressed up. You clearly are going out to go do a show tonight because you look like, he's a wrestling fan. And if I had to relate it to anything, he looks like one of the wrestling managers right now where he's got his blazer on and he's all dressed up. And it's like, oh, the beard's combed and the hair's slicked back. He's ready to go perform.
I love how you say that. And I appreciate both of you. I take that as a massive compliment. I actually did have a connection with Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South today.
That's who I was going to reference, Jimmy Hart. You got that Jimmy Hart look where it was all slick back, baby.
A little bit, yeah. Everything's beautiful, baby. We're going to have him. It looks like we're figuring out a time to get him on the Letterman podcast because he has 1,000 Andy Kaufman stories. They spent months together on the road. With the culmination being what everybody saw across North America, Jerry Lawler and Andy in Memphis, but they spent months together building up that program. So we got a lot of cool stories there. That's a compliment of the highest regard. I thank you very much for that, kind sir.
You're going to kill it. Have a great show tonight. So you'll say goodbye before you leave, though, right?
I will say goodbye before I leave, as long as Eddie is not on an amazing role of some sort, because I would never stop a comedian of such stature when he is in the middle of something.
There's not going to be any time for Eddie by the time you and I are done talking about him.
All right, I'm sorry.
All right, no, it's really me, more me than you. It's more you're fine. But I got the phone book out here, as someone just asked. Did you just pull out a phone book? Yes, Ahmad Qureshi, I sure did. I pulled out the phone book because what we do now is a segment called "How's the Weather?" And basically what we do is we riffle and point. I sort of riffled. I'm in a point. We're going to save some time here, and then I get the phone out. But what we actually do is we call Barbara Gaines and leave a message for her. And that's how we play riffle and how's the weather. In the old days, there was a segment that this refers back to where they did riffle and point. So that's why I call it riffle and point. Get the phone book and the phone out. So that's what it is. All right. Here we go.
Hi, you've reached Barbara Gaines at the alleged Barbara Gaines show. Please leave a message.
Barbara, Jay, and Nicole in the late night playset. Actually, Eddie Brill's on the line as well as Mike in Canada. Quick question. This is for Dave. Is it true that there was a point where he stole material from Tom Dreesen and then Tom Dreesen had to beat the shit out of him in a parking lot afterwards? This is the story we heard. Love to confirm. You guys are killing it with the show. Talk soon. All right. Oh, can't wait to get that one confirmed.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to hear what goes on there.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie probably knows the inside on that. But we'll just let it play
I
out.
don't actually.
Really?
The worst, they were great friends, and I'm sure that maybe they lifted from each other. I don't know but I didn't hear that story.
I can't wait to hear how this plays out. I don't want to blow it, but I can't wait to hear how it plays out and see how it all goes.
Right,
All right, so that's how we play How's the Weather? Quickly, what you watching? We got about 1 or 2 minutes to do what you watching. So I'm going to edit it down a little bit. Mrs. Ryan and I finally caught up on the Jurassic Park movies. Those movies came out when this desk was new, when the Late Show came on the air. Okay, we did it out of order because we thought, well, we know the original Jurassic Parks well enough that we'll just start with these new ones. We're not Star Wars people, so we don't do the trilogy on a trilogy, in a trilogy, within a trilogy, on top of a trilogy. So we watch, the Chris Pratt one. The Chris Pratt one's what we're talking about, Jurassic World. So we watched the first one, right? Mm-hmm. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun. Wow, they really captured a lot of what was going on in the first one, but it's like, oh, okay, this one's for the kids, and it's a different. I get it. And we enjoyed it. That was number 4, right? So we started with Jurassic Park 4. Then we went to 5, Fallen Kingdom. Ooh.
That was
Started so strong, and we went, this one has terrible reviews. I like it. And then whatever the point was.
when you said that, it felt immediate. That it just
less than
tanked.
5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
There was a fulcrum for sure, and this sucker just tipped. And I think what happened was it turned into like a special effects show, and then it was just let's scorch the earth so that we can tell a new story next time is what it felt like. And while they were doing that, they were. If anybody saw this, I don't want to give too many. I mean, this movie's been out for years. Hopefully, you've seen it. Spoiler alert! Should have said that. They make us nostalgic for all this stuff from the first movie, which is why I was liking it. I was like, oh, look at that. There's the thing from the T-Rex from the first thing. And we got married in Kauai. We vacationed there all the time before we couldn't walk and stuff. But so we used to go to Jurassic Park. We've been on the roads where we know where all these scenes were filmed. It's special to us. They're making us nostalgic, right? Oh, there's that. The music cue comes in. And then they burn it all to the ground with lava and a volcano so that you never see it again. By the way, horribly painful deaths for these awful animals. The saddest shit you've seen since Bambi. I was not into it. I was like, what did they do? And I never really recovered for the rest of the movie. How about you? And there was a lot more after that.
No, I didn't pick up on it, but now that you say it, that's totally what it was. It made me melancholy the whole time.
Yeah. It's not that it wasn't good. Here's what was our biggest argument. It was sort of built. We didn't know anything about it, and all the promo was sort of built. Oh, Jeff Goldblum returns, right? Oh, Jeff Goldblum. You've had Dr. Grant and Ellie, the blonde. You've had her and them come back. Now we're getting Jeff Goldblum to come back. He's not in this movie. It's like a donut spot for a radio ad. It's like he's in it for a second in the beginning and a second at the end, to just sort of like, he could have been a voiceover. It was not bullshit on the marketing. I call bullshit on the marketing all the way across the board on that one. It felt rushed out completely. Then we were like, all right, well, what did we even like about these movies? We had to flush our brains, so we went back to 1, 2, and 3. Right? It's been like 2 weeks since we talked about What You Watch It. This wasn't all this weekend. 2 and 3, 1, 2, and 3, great, loved them all, really did. And then we went to the most recent one. So if you're paying attention, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Now we're at 6. Expecting nothing from 6 after really not liking 5. I assumed it was the Fast and the Furious. Once they jumped the shark, it was over. But what did you think about Jurassic Park Dominion, the latest?
It felt like they went back a little bit. Like it felt warm again.
I felt the same thing. I felt like they read the focus data and they were like, oh, okay, don't be mean to the dinosaurs. Got it.
Yeah. It felt like
the message was much different.
Good adjustment.
Yeah, it was much more humane, the message, whereas the second one was just, brutally greedy and destructive. It hurt my soul. I'm so sensitive. And then also we revisited The Fifth Element, which I always kind of liked it, and I always enjoyed parts of it a lot. This time, I feel like I finally saw it for the first time.
Same.
And I really liked it.
Thought I knew it, and I knew nothing.
That was me
Once
too.
I watched
like
it.
The first time you smoke pot and like, oh, this movie's not what I thought it was about. You know, I felt like we had that experience.
Yeah.
Fully enjoyed it. Highly recommend Fifth Element and the Jurassic Park series. All of that. It's from the 90s, right? I don't know. We're going through some old shit. There were no new movies this week. We do have some new stuff to talk about, but we'll save it for Friday. I tried to, or Thursday rather. I tried to portion it out, and that was 5 minutes instead of 1, which means we're late. Got to do some ads here, but everything else is off. GBC merch we'll do next time, and commercials. They say all which separates men and boys is the coverage for their toys. What types of toys are we talking about tonight, Mrs. Ryan?
Probably collector cars.
Probably.
Definitely.
Definitely.
And sets and stuff.
Anything about you, anything you want to insure. We love St. Clair Insurance. They are licensed in most states, and St. Clair Insurance shops top providers so you get the best coverage for your toys. When we talk about the collector cars, Haggerty is a favorite because their coverage is so good, and dealing with them is generally pretty easy. But it's not the only insurance that they have. They'll have something to suit your needs, depending on what type of toy you're insuring. If it's a jet ski, maybe that has a specialty insurance. I don't know. If you've got some sort of heavy equipment, a front end loader, or a grader or backhoe.
That's why other people know this stuff.
But it doesn't matter what you have. You could have a chainsaw collection, anything of value. Check out St. Clair Insurance by simply going to www.coverageforyourtoys.com. Coverageforyourtoys.com.
Coverageforyourtoys.com.
And while you're on the internet, let me put the phone away. We've riffled, we've pointed, I've put everything away. Oh, God. I'm going a mile a minute here. I'm so nervous. Series 1 Films. This episode has been brought to you in part by Series 1 Films. That's the other thing you do while you're on the internet. Series 1 Films helps automotive brands create engaging cinematic content for social media and advertising to grab and hold your ideal customer's attention. Check them out by going to www.series1films.com. Series1films.com.
Series1films.com.
That's right, and it's a number 1. And while you're there, tell everybody that Nicole says hello, because oftentimes with the MS...
I cannot.
Sometimes she can't. Somebody here says, oh my God, The Fifth Element is one of my favorite movies of all time. Love it so much. Gary Oldman rules in that movie. Disappointed! So good. All right, this is weird. We don't need to do a break, right? Because our guest is actually already here, so I don't need to turn cameras around and everything. All right, so it is my great pleasure to welcome our guest all the way from New York, live via satellite. He's a comedian. He worked on Letterman for years. You're going to know him from a lot of stuff, but he's been with us for the whole time. Eddie Brill, thank you so much for being with us, man. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here. It's funny. it's so hot in New York, and of course, weather.
How
It's so
hot is it?
It's so hot that I took a nap, and I set an alarm, and I feel like I just woken up, but here I am. And it's also weird because I'm looking at myself here, and I kind of seem blurry, and also I'm not talking on the same. Like I'll talk, but other mouth movements will happen.
Oh, you're live here. Is there a delay there?
Possibly, I
Oh.
hear you perfectly. I hear you all perfectly, but it's a delay, so I just won't look at myself, and that'll be okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It's trying to stay in the camera there, and I like last minute, get the stuff out of my sleeping eyes.
Now, was
But
it a
anyway,
nap or was
so
it the top of show that knocked you out?
it was yeah, it was a combination of the napping and the napperson and all the combination of things with nap. But no, I'm just waking up into it. But I enjoy. I watched a bunch of your episodes, and I thought how much fun. And he uses blue cards, which is so Letterman-esque.
You got to. I mean, what else would I do but have a blue card? Oh, well, I lost the one for
No,
two
it's
weeks ago. What am I gonna do
fantastic.
with it?
I
Uh,
mean, I
and
have
and
a
I'm
few of them
assuming
at
that
home.
you know that this is the the real Letterman
Yeah,
desk and chairs and
yeah,
microphone and stuff.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay,
No, I
good.
knew all that stuff. And Mike is natural.
Well,
He's
and
naturally natural. And but no, I knew all that stuff. But it's just it's been the show's been off the air, since 2015. It's like 7 years ago. And to see the things. And do you have a bunch of pencils with double erasers on it?
I have a couple of those. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for
I just
sure.
have one left because I was giving so many away. But
Well, I hope you
it's
keep
just
that
it's
one.
nice. It's nice to see the set. It's nice to It's so nice to see the set. Da, ba, da, ba. So
Well, let's deal with the elephant in the room then. What year did you start at the Late Show, or at the what with the Letterman Company?
1997. I was working. You mentioned Louis C.K., and he was working as one of the producers of the Dana Carvey show, and I was the warm up there. Bob Smigel was the director, and it was just a cast of incredible talent. And the show didn't last long because it was too smart for American television, so it got taken off the air. And then I got a call from the Letterman show. Louis had recommended me because he was now working and writing for Letterman to do the warm up. And I had done some warm up, a little bit here and there. My first warm up gig was Saved by the Bell in the late 80s. And I was really just pretty much a babysitter. But I went to college with incredible people I went to college with. And one of the guys I knew really well in college got me the job as a warm up. So in those days, in the 80s, I was so broke, had no money. I had a fancy looking car because I borrowed a car. Everyone thought I was rich because I had a gold Chrysler LeBaron
That
convertible.
sounds familiar.
And I'd pull
Yeah.
into the comedy store and I had like 10 cents in my pocket, but I'd have this car that my friend lent me while I was out in LA. So everyone thought I was wealthy. Um, it's kind of interesting. But anyway, um, I got the job as the warm up, and it paid some bills, which was great. And then I got some other little warm up jobs along the way. This Is Your Life. I did a whole bunch. I also have done. There was a show called Madigan Men, which was with Gabriel Byrne, and that was really fun. He was terrific. But I got a 6 week trial period from Dave, and I had met him once before at the Comedy Store, and Mitzi was very good to me and good to Dave, and said a lot of compliments to me in the fact that I reminded her of Dave and the kind of comic I was and stuff. So it was nice. It was all different little things came all together, including the synapses in my brain that I remembered the story from beginning to end. And and then the 6 weeks turned into 17 years. So it
Wow.
was amazing. It
All
was
right. Well,
amazing.
then the good thing is probably the elephant isn't actually in this room because you started after I was already there. But if you know my history, there was a night where I actually snuck into the theater and I stole the microphone. It wasn't on the desk; it was downstairs. But the whole thing, and then Dave jumps on the show the next night and talks about how, oh yeah, our old-fashioned microphone was stolen and the whole thing. And I just sunk in the whole. There's a whole story there, and I didn't know if you knew it. And I was going to ask if you.
I didn't.
Okay. All right. Well, they all do. So don't worry about it. We're not.
Okay, good.
It's not being revealed here for the first time. But what I'm trying to get at is when my little thing was going on, it was during a week that they had just unveiled the new set, the set that you worked at with the bridges and everything, and they had retired the one that we're sitting at, and they wrote a lot of different pieces about things that related to the kid sneaking in and stealing the microphone. So they wrote a bit. They had Dana Carvey come in when he was promoting his show, the show that you're talking about. And they had him come in and rip off a piece of the set to like steal a piece of the set to take to his show. And it was all sort of a bit on this. You wouldn't have had anything to do with a Dana Carvey bit on Letterman while you were writing
not
it,
at
Dana
all.
Carvey. Okay.
In those days, it was just really the warm up. The Dana Carvey show, was I really did only one episode of it because then the show got, booted, which was a shame. And it was done in the CBS building down the street. And I guess when I got over to Letterman, there was all this other stuff going on. But I don't. It was February of '97, so that's when I started.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so you said it was through Dave that you got the job there?
I had through Louis.
Oh, but so that's amazing.
Louis was the writer there, and he was the producer, one of the producers over at Dana Carvey. So when Dave was looking for a warm up, now since Louis left the show was over. So I was out of a warm up gig, and Louis was out of a job. He went over to Letterman and got a writing job. Very soon after that, Dave was looking for a warm up guy, and Louis recommended me.
Wow. So
I had to have a meeting. I had a meeting with Dave and some of the producers, Gaines and Maria Pope were in the meeting, but it worked out nicely. It was one of my favorite shows in the world. So, I had to get over the shock a little bit at the beginning. Then there was, but to be there and to be in that theater, I actually was in that theater and did a live show from that theater. There was a British show called the Jonathan Ross Show. Still, he's an incredible guy, and
I know it well.
Yeah. So what happened is there was I worked in England a lot before I worked at Letterman, and I was regular on the scene and doing all the TV shows in England and Ireland. And one of the producers over there got in touch with me and said, "Look, we're coming to New York. We're doing a couple of weeks of shows live from the Sullivan Theater." Of course, Dave was at NBC during that time. And he said, "I'd like you to be in some of the skits and sketches and stuff." And I said, "Oh, I'd love it." So that, was really fun. I did a whole bunch of that. And then all of a sudden, one of the people who were scheduled, I think it was Stephen Wright, my old college buddy, had a gig somewhere. He couldn't do the British show. And the producer called me. He says, "Eddie, what are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Hanging out." "Why? What do you want to do?" He says, "I got to run you around town. I want you to do the show tomorrow as a comic." So I got to be on. So, and one of my heroes, Lilly Tomlin, was one of the other guests.
Oh my God!
So I had to put a set together, but I was able to do it. We along with the producer who was very talented, and I got to be on the show as a guest. And so I performed at that theater before it was Letterman had moved over to CBS.
Wow.
Really
Backstory. Cool. Backstory that you won't care at all about me, but when I was a kid, I heard these stories for years and years and years. But my dad used to go down to that theater and see the Jackie Gleason show get taped on Saturday nights.
Very
when
cool.
When it was yes. And I heard all these stories about the orchestra and June Taylor dancers and all this crazy stuff. And then one day, my dad passed away when I was young, so he didn't really get to hear the stories of of actually being around the theater and everything. But all of the different shows that have shot in the theater over the years, I don't think people really realize. We joke about Kate and Alley, but like Hollywood Squares, and it's not just Ed Sullivan.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
I can't
Jackie
imagine
Mason
people
had his
do.
show for a while there.
Really?
Yeah, Jackie Mason did a show out of there, and
I used to love him.
There was also, way back when in the early 1900s, and the theater was used. It was a theater. It was a small, intimate. During the days of the Late Show with Letterman, it was 492 seats, and that's kind of small compared to many theaters around that area. So
yeah,
it seemed like 1 million seats, but it was less than 500.
Well, again, having explored every damn inch of the freaking place, you could tell when Letterman was there anyway that they had taken out a lot of seats. They used to shoot that production area up in what would have been, I guess, another balcony maybe. Is that
Yeah,
right? That area in the back there? It seemed
and
like there
behind,
used.
yeah, behind the balcony.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like there were probably a lot of seats back there at one point. So
Yeah,
all
there
that was
might have
taken out
been.
for Dave.
Right, but not. I don't think there was that many because, uh, I mean, I don't know. It could have been like 30 or 40 seats, but
Oh,
then
okay.
again, I don't really know. But it seemed like a small area where they would film some little skits and stuff. But in that area was recessed way in the back. You couldn't have been able to see the stage if it was that far back.
Right, right. Um, by the time you were doing the Letterman stuff, when I say by the time you were working on Letterman, you were going there to be a perform. Did you get hired as the warm up, and that
First, yeah.
is
But
okay? And that's what I was going to say. How does it
at the
get to the
same time,
booking?
Zoe Friedman, Bud Friedman's daughter, who was booking the comedians at the time, was working with me to get a set together for the show because I had auditioned for Morty before that, and he liked me, but I wasn't. There's very few comics get to be on the show. It's a small group, so I didn't get it, but they were kind of interested little by little. And then, I started in February '97, and then later that year, I got to do my first spot on the show, which was, a dream come true. I mean, like I said, I'd been on the show, been on that stage, which was a dream come true. But the interesting thing about doing the show now as a guest is that I was on that stage every night. So it was it was like my living room, and my friends were all around me hanging out. So I was very comfortable. As nerve wracking as it was so less nerve wracking because it's the best theater I've ever done stand up comedy in, and I've done hundreds of theaters, and at the same time, it was just a dream come true to stand where the Beatles stood, stand where Dave Letterman stood,
Oh man,
all that.
have you been back to the theater since it's so different?
Yeah, it's interesting because the to me this a lot of the staff, a lot of the production staff of the camera folks and the security people, and there's a few people there that I still know, and I stop by just to say hello. And to me, the Ed Sullivan Theater had its own heart and soul. Of course, like I'm like the old man at the party. When I was at the Ed Sullivan show, it was show
Yeah.
and no other show. But the way it is now, it's like going to a pinball machine with all the lights and everything's all lit up, and the stage is like part of the thing. It to me it takes away from the subtleties, the beautiful subtleties of the Ed Sullivan Theater by having everything overlit and overshining. But it looks good on television, and I wish them luck, and I'm happy that they're successful or whatever. But also, they put the desk on the other side, which is fine. That's where Carson had his desk on that side. But also, they have steps you have to walk up and sort of turn your back on the audience for a moment as you're coming to the stage. Whereas in the Letterman show, you can sashay right in, looking straight at the audience the whole time.
Oh my goodness. When I was stumbling through my question before, what I was actually curious was about you got hired as the warm-up person, but is that then in turn the comedy booking position as well, or did you go for and get that separately?
It was a separate thing that happened later. Zoe, who I mentioned a moment ago, was booking, got an incredible job over at Comedy Central to, sort of be one of the big wigs there, running what was going on at the network. And it was smart for her to take it. She wanted to move to Los Angeles. She had her family and all that stuff. So then they had a couple of people do the booking in between, and they just weren't thrilled with it. And so they were looking for a new booker. Now, at that time I got close to Dave really quickly. Luckily, because Laurie Diamond, his assistant, was very nice to me. There's this
Me
odd
too.
connection of comedians and producers who went to Emerson College in Boston, where I went to school. Bill
Ah,
Burr and Bill Dana and Doug Herzog of Comedy Central, and Norman Lear and Henry Winkler and David Cross and Laura Keitlinger. I can go on, and just a list of Dennis Leary, Stephen Wright, Mario Cantone. It was Andrea Martin. It was just Emerson was the school that put all these people out. On the crew at the Letterman show, Michael Goldsmith was my next door neighbor in college. He was running the cameras, and Lori who went to Emerson, was right near me. So her and I got really close, and then she kind of brought me over to the desk, and every commercial break, I was standing at the desk with Dave, and it was kind of nice. And we talked a lot, and either talked about sports or the Beatles, or we talked about what we should do in the next segment or different things. And I was privy to those conversations. So we would talk about stand up all the time, especially about the Comedy Store days, because that's where I kind of lived and had my real comedy breakthrough kind of thing. And Dave, the same thing. So we were talking about comics, and when the situation came up that they needed a booker, I was on my way to Las Vegas to do some gigs, and I get a phone call. It's Barbara Gaines, and when you come back, Dave wants you to take over the booking. And I went to Dave. I said, it's going to be crazy, and there's going to be a million people knocking on my door. He goes, "No, who cares? Just do the job, do it well."
Yeah. And that was the only advice you got?
Yeah.
Do the job well?
Pretty much. Yeah, do it well. And it was kind of funny at the beginning when I was booking it. I had the freedom to book who I wanted. Of course, everything has to get approved, by standards and practices, and everything legal, and what music they were coming out to, and all that. Because the one thing about Letterman for comedians, the comedians chose the song they came out to, where the other guests, Paul would make up a song based on the title of a movie or their name or something. Comedians had their own choice of what music came out to. So, there was all these different things that I do. But, I got to put on George Carlin and the Smothers Brothers, and then younger comics like, at that time, Louis Black. And then I was convinced people like Roseanne and all them to come back and do stand-up, Larry Miller. And I think it was near Thanksgiving or near Halloween, I had a comic come on the show, and I let them do material that wasn't safe for network television, that I thought was okay. And they said, Eddie, you've done a great job, but for now on, we really need to see the material before you go out there. The comedian was Harlan Williams, and he knows I've talked about the story, and he had two really funny jokes that were so funny, and the audience were rolling with laughter. And one was about having 69 with the Care Bear and the Snuggle Bunny or something like that, two products, and that wasn't approved, and and that was cut out. And then the other one was about, he said his father had an interactive tattoo, and he had the Disney's log flume on the crack of his ass, and every time he went to the bathroom, he felt like a kid again, and that was his big closer.
I was hanging out with him at the Laugh Factory in the 90s when he was working that one out. The log, got a tattoo on my ass with the Disneyland log flume ride, and he does his little face. He's the best.
And not only was it hilarious, but the crowd went nuts. And I looked over to Dave, as I normally do, and he was looking at me like, they've been in network television nighttime for a million years. What I thought should have passed wasn't going to, and they were cool about it. He was very nice to me. He said, "Who approved them?" I go, "I approved them." He goes, "Okay, well, glad that you admitted it, kind of thing." And yeah, I said they were funny jokes. He goes, "Yeah, they were funny, but you can't say Disney and crack of your ass on television." So then I had to start. From then on, every joke had to be, made sure that it was okay. Even when I did stand up on the show, the producers had to get me together, and they, helped produce the segment, and I had to go over which material I was going to do, and it was kind of interesting. And when I did the show as a guest, I'd warm up the audience, I'd go up there, I'd produce the segment, and then I'd perform the stand up, and then so I would have like 3 jobs at once.
Well, that was going to be my question. If you're going to perform your segment, you would work with a different segment producer to get that going?
With the segment, the major producers above me, and I'd get them,
gotcha.
the associate producers like Nancy, and they were really, one great thing about Letterman, people there were so talented and so good at what they did that you had to bring your A game because everyone else was doing the same thing. And that's what was one of the most amazing things about the show. You just become really good at what you do because of who you work with. So Yeah, I had to do that, and then occasionally, like Alan Coulter couldn't make it, and I'd get to do the opening. From New York, the greatest city in the world, and
Love it.
oh my God, what a thrill that was!
Yeah, I was gonna say, how does that feel
Well,
in
the
that
first time
theater?
I did it, I was so excited that they brought me down to the control room after the show to redo the voiceover because I sounded like I was 5 years old. And then, Merle Haggard. I got so excited. I said, I know the band was swelling up and the music was playing and the audience was applauding, and I'm doing that line from New York. I couldn't believe it. And then I did it a few other times, and I was okay. But the first time,
Oh man. You
horrible.
brought up that's
Jay, I got a
fantastic.
bolt. I'll see you guys later.
All
Go
right, great
take
to
care of
see you,
yourself.
Mike.
Have a
Thanks for
good
hanging
rest.
out.
Yeah. Hey, Eddie, thanks. Good to see you again. And I wish I could say I can't wait to watch the whole show back. Have a great show, guys.
All right, talk
Take
to you
care.
later, buddy. Eddie, you brought up the energy before of that theater, and you saying it was great for stand-up. I've heard mixed things from people. I think you probably did have that comfort zone you were talking about before. One of the things that I noticed that they've changed in the new show is that all of the technical and physical differences you mentioned, of course, but also in the way that they shoot the Stephen Colbert show, they seem to have a month's worth of stand-up comics all come in on one night and do basically a night of comedy, so that particular Stephen Colbert
Yeah, that's
audience
the
doesn't see the
difference.
Stephen Colbert show.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, they also did that on the Late Late Show with
Oh,
Craig Kilborn and Ferguson.
I
They,
didn't realize
they
that.
would shoot a bunch of comedians at once and then just plug them in. And like he, the host would come in and just knock out the intros for them, and they'd show a repeat of that. But with
Right.
Letterman, it would be that day. It would be and oftentimes, we tape 4 days a week, and for a very short time, we tape two on Mondays, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, one Thursday, and then for a very long time we did one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, two Thursdays. So
Right.
comics usually appeared on the Friday show, which was taped the second show on Thursday. So that was the only break. But the good part about that was if you got bumped from the show, like they ran out of time, you would be able to. You wouldn't have that much time to call all your friends. But if you did the Thursday night and it made the final cut, whatever, you had the whole day to tell everyone, I'm going to be on Letterman, So that worked out.
That's hilarious.
It was good.
When I heard this whole theory, like doing it this way, I mean, the showmanship just goes out the window for being part of the late show, or whatever. But it just, I don't know. We don't do our little podcast here like a normal podcast does, where you kind of cut it up in segments. We're doing it here live to tape for an hour or so. In the
Right.
same way that you guys or any one of those old school shows used to be done. I don't know. It seems like I might not be, if I'm just picking on one show, I don't mean to be. It may just be how the business is run now. But it bums me out because some of the romance that I fell in love with was all of that show, all of what he just talked about, everyone being on their A game to deliver, the whole mass.
I remember that part from working with them. Like, yeah, I had to gear up to call over there.
To go to
even.
Letterman. To just talk to somebody.
Call, because you had to have yourself together to have conversations before anything. You had to know when the movies were coming out because they had deals with studios, and we were trying to circumvent the wrong word, but add to what the studio was pushing.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to have yourself together before you talked to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Mm.
Sorry, but
Yeah,
the whole thing is the
I love-
entity I miss.
Yeah, and the other thing was the Letterman show did a 3/4 shot, which was straight on. And what they added later, Jerry Foley, who was again brilliant. We had two directors in the history of Letterman. One was Foley, and the other one was all of a sudden Hal Gurney. So it's like two hospital terms, Gurney and Foley.
That didn't occur to
the
me.
two, the two directors of the show. But Foley was there when I was there, and he put a second camera in from the back of the room. So when the comedian was getting a long applause break, instead of it just focusing on them standing there waiting for the applause break to be over, they cut to the camera in the back, so like that. That would pull,
Nice wide.
yeah. They were really good. It was really smart. It was again. it really was the best in the business I was working with. Dave Dorset, the cameraman, the main cameraman, was Walter Cronkite's cameraman. It was really, like I said,
Wow.
everyone who worked there was really. It was such a pleasure to work and to have to be able to bring your game to that level, which was it was very professional. There was a real family strength there. It was, like any family, there was, whatever craziness to it, and but mostly it was about putting a show together and then forgetting the show's over and that yesterday's gone. It's time to work on the next day and make it amazing.
Yeah, they do all kind of blend together after a while, don't they?
Well, it's weird because I mean there are shows that stand out for me, like meeting certain people. Like I became very close with Don Rickles, which was a thrill for me.
Wow.
Carlin was, and we became friends out of it. And that it's ridiculous almost because my father's hero comic was Rickles, and Rickles said some really nice things about me on the air, and it really helped my father and I to get closer because
Oh,
he
wow.
started respecting the kinds of things I was doing. But there's a million. I got to sit at the piano with Burt Bacharach, and I got to sing with the band during the warm up, and I got this. I have a list of like 30 things that I've done at the show that are just spectacular, the dream come trues and things that I never dreamed of coming true happening for me there. It was really amazing.
Oh, I love it. Well, you mentioned again everyone's professionalism and just how tight it all was. Having to live up to that standard, what then were you looking for in comedians or in a tight five for that type of show, knowing what a demanding environment it was going to be? Not even with your note from Dave, just in general.
So hard.
Well, no, it was pretty much. I always say I was looking for Nina Simone. I was looking for someone who they weren't a comic who was on the surface. They were, soulful and funny and silly, and because it wasn't my show. There's a few comics I would have liked to have on the show that were friends of mine that were brilliant, but they just didn't fit the kind of comics that were wanted on the show. And I, bring up a lot of comedians, and some were okay by them, and some were not okay. And it hurt, to be in that position because, first of all, my whole life I was, jolly, happy-go-lucky. Don't want anyone, want to please everybody. But once all of a
Oh,
sudden that was my youth, and then you grow up and things happen, and then you get a little stronger. But it was hard. It was hard to certain people couldn't do the show and I wanted them and they thought I didn't want them and I couldn't tell them that they weren't wanted by the show. It was a little tough, but part of the job. The greatness also had some negative things, and that was one of them. Not being able to, there's 4,000 comedians calling and writing and texting and video sending, and there's 15 spots for the year, and most of them are already regulars that we had on the show, like Gaffigan and Jake Johansson and Brian Regan.
yeah. Or Dave's favorites like Tom Dreesen, right?
Yeah, well, Tom, that was a different thing because Tom didn't do stand up on the show. He just sat with
Oh,
Dave. They're old friends. And I
yeah,
think it
for
was
sure.
like
So
they,
he only ever did panel. It didn't occur to me.
yeah, his friends would come on, like Jeff Altman and all those folks would come on, and they wouldn't do stand up. They'd sit at the desk and they do stand up, but they're doing it in a chat fashion. That's
Right.
all.
They're still doing the material.
So your grandmother, how has she been doing? Speaking of my grandmother, and then they do their grandmother. You know.
Oh, what a fun environment. I hope you know. I mean, I guess it's pretty obvious, but I hope you know how many people you guys affected with the work that you all did. I mean, I know Mike says that all the time, but you really inspired a generation. I think podcast came out of him saying, Letterman and saying, one day all talk shows will be like this. And
Yeah.
guess what?
Yeah.
Here we are.
It was great. But when you're doing something like that, you're not thinking I'm doing something, because you're in it, you're doing it, and you're just trying to. The key is to make the boss happy. It's his name's on the marquee, so he's the one who lives and dies with the success or not. So you were forced to bring your game, like I said a couple of times, bring it to that next level so that the shows were really great. And if something didn't go right, which was rare because we were so, it was such a well-oiled machine, we'd make fun of it, and then the next day we'd have to do something. We'd have to forget about what happened yesterday, and then do the next show.
Oh, that's hilarious. Switching gears off of Dave just for a few. Am I wrong
Sure.
in that I remember seeing you on Louie, right? On the show Louie.
Yeah,
On
we had a poker game at my house for over 20 years with
That's the
all
scene. That's
comedians,
totally what I'm
and
talking about. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry. Woo!
So we
I'm
filmed it
excited.
at a studio. We filmed it at a studio, but we did have a game in my house, and sometimes we'd have two games going on. Monday nights, I hosted a show at Caroline's for 14 years, and every Monday I'd come home and there'd be poker at my house, and my seat would be open and ready to go, and comedians from all over the world would play. You can only have eight to a table, so I mean, at the early days, I can name drop all the comics: Colin Quinn, Sarah Silverman, and on and on and on. And Louis was one of the comics. And when he wrote his show, he wrote the poker game in it. And actually, Louis and I are the only people who actually played poker. The other people, like Nick DiPaolo and I think it was Hannibal Buress and Jim
Exactly.
Norton and one of the funniest guys in the world, Rick Rome.
Yep.
We were on there, and none of them knew how to play poker, so we never actually had a game. But Louis wrote the scene, and it was, and I got some great stuff out of that. It was really nice for me. The coolest thing was Bill Hader came up to me out of the blue and said, "I saw you on Louie. You're amazing," and that's all I really needed because I'm such a fan of him.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I
very
felt
nice.
that scene was, that whole show was one of the reasons I liked it was so vulnerable. It was so,
Yes.
here's my belly, I mean, it really,
Very raw.
it was very strange to me when there was controversy later on when I was like, but this guy has been telling you the whole damn time. You haven't been listening. It's your fault. Um, sorry, I know maybe not a popular opinion, but we love the show and the vulnerability. That scene in particular, because of the subject matter, I'm not going to spoil this one,
Yeah.
but go watch it if you can find it. Is just it's sensitive and beautiful the way it's handled among these guys, and I really really like it and appreciate it.
Yeah, it was compelling, and it was a very little chunk of us ad libbing to play. Louis let us ad lib, but we were tight to the script. He wrote some very provocative, smart stuff, and that show was up for an Emmy. The show that I was in, which
That
was really
episode,
kind of
yeah.
cool. So it was good. Louis, I did a lot of work in Louis stuff over the years. I was the host in Boston the night he first did stand up, I think, and
What?
so I've known him a long time. Yeah, I started in college in Boston, and then I quit for a while and started up again. In the '84, ran a club in New York City called the Paper Moon that eventually became the Boston Comedy Club. That's the history of that
Oh,
little thing. And I started that room, and it was Adam Sandler's first comedy room. People like Susie Essman and Brett Butler and Wendy Liebman and all these people were making their first spots in New York in this club, and I was bringing comics in from L.A., San Francisco, Boston, who weren't working very much in New York, and that was going really well. And then I got sick of booking, which was weird because later I had the biggest booking
I'll
job
do it for
in
17
Manhattan.
years.
But I stopped running the comedy club because people were calling me at home at 2 in the morning. I'm really funny. I go, I'm sure, but I have to go to sleep. And I worked a lot all over the world, kind of stuff. I was lucky to go to London to do stand up, did well, and then I started working their sort of circuit where I was working, Paris and Amsterdam and all of Ireland, and then from there I got to work Australia and Hong Kong, and I became a much better comedian because I was really seeing what it was like just to be a pure comedian. It didn't matter what country you're from. There was this purity and I even thought the British comics comedy scene had it better than America, and there was so much pandering among American comedians that the British didn't put up with, and not just the
Mm.
comics but the audiences. My very first line in England, the first night I ever did a set in London, I think it was like '89 or something like that. I said, "It's great to be here in London." The guy yells out, "Bullshit!" And it was like because that was such a typical American thing to do. Like, I love it. It's great to be here. All that fake pandering that Americans do as comics, and I got a lesson in, you don't need to pander. It's not we're not here to please the audience. We're here to tell our truth, and then if the audience is pleased, that works out great. But we were too busy. Now here's my audition to audition at the Comedy Store in London, which again one of the best clubs in the world. And I came out. The guy goes, "Bullshit," and I went, "All right, yeah, you're right. It smells like shit, and it's a shit town. It stinks of urine or something like that." And then all of a sudden, then the crowd was on my side again. And then luckily I did well and was asked to come back there. And I did a lot of British television. It really learns you when you go to another culture and you're able to make them laugh. I performed in Bangladesh, and it's people say, well, how do you don't these people don't know the material from the United States. And I said, what I learned to do was not write material about the United States, although I would have some in there. I learned how to write for human beings.
That's
So
it.
if you lived in Bangladesh or you lived in Brooklyn, you had nightmares and dreams, and so if you write a bit about that, they're going to get it in whatever country you're talking. So I became a better comic from all that European stuff, and I kind of put it on hold. I would go to Europe and stuff like that when I worked at Letterman, but I there's a lot I stopped doing because I was working on Letterman. I got offered a part on Curb Your Enthusiasm for an episode, and I had to turn it down because Letterman was taping at the exact same time, and I had
Oh,
Bill Burr as a guest on the show, which is, I'm not complaining, going, well, I had to do Letterman. It was fantastic that I was working at Letterman. It was great that I was putting Bill Burr on television, but it's like, oh, I wish I would have been able to do more films, but there's only so many hours in the day.
yeah. Uh, Along the lines of what you were talking about just a few minutes ago with the pandering, was it you who wrote? I I read something on social media today. Who was someone complaining about the red light? So I'd say, "Oh, the red light's on." Was that you?
Yeah, it was on Facebook. It was in the like memories, and I wrote about it like 5 or 6 years ago. We were down in the Cayman Islands, me and a friend of mine, Dennis. We were working with this other comic, and this comic was just his ego, I guess, needed soothing constantly because he was pandering, pandering, pandering through the whole set. And it's really hard to watch, if you're a comedian and you just watch, hey, how about those old people? Hey, let's give the troops a big hand. It's like they just they are so afraid to get laughs and applause based on their material. So they just do these like, hey, give yourselves a round of applause for coming out tonight. It's like, why would we
Oh,
applaud? Why would we applaud for coming out tonight? We've gone out before. We're not proud. We don't need to thank ourselves for going out. But it's just a ruse that comedians use to to get the audience laughing and clapping
right.
before you get a chance. But what happened at this show that we were working a week with this comedian, and with about you get the light on that tells you how much time you have left in the show before you have to bring up the next comedian. So the light would come on, wouldn't come on, and he'd go, "Oh my God, they're giving me the light. I've got to get out of here. I'm so sorry. I love you guys. Do you guys mind if I do a couple of more minutes?" And the crowd would go, "Yeah!" And it was bullshit. And the light didn't never came on. He had that time there. He acted like he didn't, and it was just for his ego to get them to cheer. Now, there's no grace in that at all. And me and Dennis, my friend, we one night, the third night he did it. He said, "Oh, look, I'm getting the light." And Dennis and I go, "No, you're not getting the light. You still have 10 minutes. Don't worry." And it just shot down.
Called him out.
Yeah, it called him out. But the audience didn't know that. We weren't outing him in front of the audience. We were going, "Look, stop. You're a professional. Stop. You know, have a little grace. Have a little. Comedy's based really in the truth, and you're bullshitting people to soothe your ego. Look, there are games and tricks that you do as a stand-up comic to get audiences to do certain things, but that's those. There's a lot of clever things to do, but he wasn't doing something clever to make himself a better comedian. He was just his ego needed the audience to laugh, and he had to set up something that was not necessary to do it, and we put
Yeah.
him in his place.
That's what I see. If your material's good enough, you don't need the manipulation. I mean, you don't need to do
No.
comedy and magic at the same time.
Yeah.
And you could,
When it's good, they don't do that.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
when you're done, you're done. Say goodnight. That's you've done your show, and you get a laugh, and you say goodnight, and that's good. Now, that's I'm a little stricter that way, and other people don't care. But like you can manipulate. I can manipulate a room. Like if it's loud a little bit, I can rhythmically change the. I could change the rhythm of the room. A comedian can do that. You change the rhythm of the room, and you get the crowd on your on your team, and you have a better show because you're able to corral the crowd from being talky or whatever.
You're getting them
And
onto your
those are
frequency, right?
yeah, it really is that. And you can, and it's really effective, and you don't have to yell at anybody. And there are a lot of little tricks that you learn from a stage time, stage time, stage time. So I would, do those kinds of things. And that's a trick, that you work the rhythm of the room. But that's a trick that's a horse of a different color. You know, why
In
did you
my
say
day.
so? Come on in. It was so, but the thing that guy did was just, it was sickening to watch.
Well,
So
if it
we,
wasn't one time too, that was simply part of the act. Like he wrote this and it's part of the material. He was doing it every
yeah,
night.
Yeah.
That's
he
funny.
did it every night for 2 nights, and by the third night, we were in the back of the room going, "We're not going to allow this to happen," and he stopped
Amazing.
doing it.
Okay, can you tell me how you know Neil deGrasse Tyson and why you were co-hosting his show with him at one point? Because to me, that's the coolest thing in the world.
It was really cool. I met him years ago because we did. He was part of a club, and we were down. We were doing a comedy show, and he gave me his card way back when, and said, he liked my comedy, and I loved what he did, and I got to bring my nephew to the planetarium, and he was just a really nice guy. And then when it came time, they wanted a couple of guest hosts. I don't know how it happened, but they said he'd like to have you co-host, and I did a few of them. It was really nice, you know. And it's just he's such a. You get great exposure first of all as a comedian doing it, but at the same time, I love his work and the show, and I love his mind, and we were able to play. And again, he's such a brilliant man, like Letterman. You have to bring your game up to play on the same field with these people.
Yeah, that's a fine point, but that's kind of, I guess, what I was coming to. I mean, you can't just go sit at that table. Like you have to be able to play. So you must either follow him enough. You didn't just run into him in a bar and like, oh, I like what you do. Yeah, I like what you do. You know what I mean? Like he is at a different level. Even I don't want to say above Letterman, but it's
Right.
just it's a different scale. And in my generation, it was Carl Sagan, right? There was like billions and
Yeah,
billions
Carl
and
Sagan,
billions,
brilliant.
and Johnny and Carl Sagan were friends, and they were brilliant guys and whatever. But I don't recall them, other than bits on the show, I don't recall them ever working together. I don't recall them ever hosting something together. And to have you, a comedian, doing it with somebody who is like Mr. Science, I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's super, super cool, and I want to maybe I want to see more of it. Maybe I'm pitching you a show. You guys should do a show right now.
Yeah, no, it would be great. I was gonna do more, and the producers are very happy with what I did, thankfully. And I've run into them on occasions, and they said, "Oh, of course, we'd like to have you back." And then, the pandemic stopped a lot of those kinds of things that
Oh,
were about to happen. So hopefully, sometime soon I'll be able to do it again. I think, they used a couple of different comics, and they wanted to try a few people that he liked and saw. So I think that's
oh,
how it
okay.
worked out. And we hit it off really well, and he is it's really fun because you you can it's his show, so you have to respect that, but he allows you to be able to have a little bit of a voice in there where a lot of hosts don't, especially of
Right.
his magnitude. He's so generous with his time, and and sharing the if he's having a good time and he thinks the show is smart, again, I'm speaking at it without asking him what he thinks, but it's you know he has a show that it's fun to watch even if you're not on it.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah. Well, that's the Letterman like as well. Um, Going back to Dave just for a second. Did you have a lot of dealings with Bill Sheft? Because when you mentioned Laurie Diamond before, I'm thinking anything over by the spiral staircase there.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like that's its own
yeah.
little clique.
Well, Chef and I did comedy a few times before then. We once went to do a gig in New Jersey. This is the first time I hung out with him, and he was driving, and it was the two of us. We were going down to Jersey, just outside of Atlantic City, and this huge 700 or 1,000 seat venue. And the night before, it was I forgot who it was. Somebody, some famous rock band was there the night before, and we drove up to the thing, and the parking lot was filthy, like they hadn't cleaned up from the band from the night before, and there was like two cars in the whole parking lot, and we wanted to see what was going on, and we walked in, and there were three people there to see our show, like 1,000 seats, and a husband, a wife, and her mother were the only audience. And they were excited. They wanted to see a show. And I've done shows for two people before. This was three. So the owner of the club said, "Look, we're just going to give these people their money back. Here's your money. Thanks for coming." And so Bill and I went to Atlantic City, and we won more money. And then we drove home. We didn't have to do a show, and we came home with more money than we were expected to. That
That's
was one of my
amazing.
first Bill chefs came. And when I first worked there, Bill was working there, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, one of the things he said is, whatever you do, my piece of advice is that just tell Dave the truth." And that was a good piece of advice. He just, he doesn't want you to kiss his ass, or that was what I inferred from what he said. And Dave wanted to know the truth, so that was what Bill said. And then there was a time when Bill left the show because he wanted to write a book. He's written a couple of books, but he was writing a book or something, and he left. So, me and Bill would go to the desk in all the commercial breaks. But for a couple of years, Bill had left the show, so it was just me going up to the desk and stuff. It was kind of interesting. It was kind of, Bill was sort of training wheels for me because the way I first, there was a fifth anniversary at CBS show that was going on. I had come in like the third year. So it started in 94, not 93, in August 30th, 93. And February 97, I started working. So by the time it was the fifth year, I've only been there at the show for a short time, and they had a big dinner for all the writers and producers, and I didn't really know that many people, so I just sat at the last table in the corner, and Dave came in late with chefs, and they joined the end of the table. So now it's me sitting next to Dave and Dave sitting next to chef, and the whole night it was just the three of us talking. And that was one of the very first times we started talking about stand up, because Bill, Dave, and I were the only ones at that table that had done stand up. And I pretty much lived at the Comedy Store, and Mitzi Shore was very generous to me. And my son's a comedian, and she
Oh,
was had been she was she's no longer unfortunately with us, but she was very incredibly wonderful to my son as well. So her family, they gave us a lot of great opportunities, and so that's when I first started really, really chatting with Dave, and we're both huge hockey fans, and he loved the
what?
original six. Yeah, he
What
loves
did
the
you?
original six,
That's amazing.
and we would go.
Nicole here, before she, when she could walk, she played varsity hockey at Michigan, University of Michigan.
Oh my God, Michigan, one of the best
Yeah, she grew up in
schools
Rochester,
for
so she
hockey
grew
in
up
the
on the ice.
world. Yeah, it's odd because I never ice skated, because there was part of my life when I was roller skating, doing sort of the hockey, and then I moved to Florida and there was not a lot of ice, so I
Nope.
played
Yeah, lost
basketball and
interest.
baseball instead of hockey. It would be all this melty water, but so I got to do a lot of fun. I got to do a lot of fun things with Dave. Go to me and Chef and Dave and uh, one other guy, and his name's slipping my mind. We'd go to the games together, and it was a lot of fun. Being out with Dave, and one time me and Chef were invited to dinner with him, with Dave and Rickles, and I laughed for 2.5 hours. I
Oh
laughed for
my
two and a half
God.
hours. It was the most fun you could ever have in the world. Yeah, so a little bit, and then there was a room where we got to watch movies before they came out, so that Dave can talk about it, because he wanted to see the films. He didn't want to just go, yeah, some producer told me about the movie. He really wanted to read the book or see the film or whatever.
Again, authenticity.
So we were able to see the films there. It was really, it was unbelievable. It was such a good, amazing time in my life, and yeah, I'm proud of all the fun I had there and the hard work I put in.
You mentioned a time when Bill Sheff left. I think that was probably when our friend and someone who helps us with this show, Gabe Abelson, probably came in, because I know he was a monologue writer for a while, and
Gabe
I
was
know that
there
Chef
before.
Chef gave him the what's that?
Yeah, Gabe was there before me. I knew Gabe also from stand up,
Oh,
and then
before.
Gabe
Okay.
Yeah, and then Gabe wasn't around. I don't think when by that time.
Okay,
He had gone to LA. I
gotcha.
don't know the timeline for the, but Bill, me, and Gabe were all working at the show. Gabe was putting the top 10 list together, and Bill was one. Bill had a multiple roles on the show, and a lot of them was to sort of be, Dave's liaison to the staff or whatever, that kind of a thing.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that, but that makes a lot of sense. Sort of a go-between.
Yeah, because Bill worked at the NBC show as well, and he did warm up a little bit. It wasn't for him, so Bill had told me he didn't really like doing it, so he ended up more as a writer. That's happened. But yeah, no, I've known Chef for a very long time.
I love it. I love it. If you couldn't think back of one memory of yours or something maybe that you had a hand in producing or whatever, is there anything that sort of locks in your head as the quintessential, oh, this is what I think of when I think of my time at Letterman? Is there any one sort of
There's
nugget?
there's a lot of them, oddly enough. There's one where a comedian named Joe Wong, who was from China, and it took me a few years to get him to be understandable. Not that I helped him to get on the show, and he had one of the best first shows that any comedian's ever had. And as a result of his first show on Letterman, he had gotten the Correspondence Dinner, to be on the Ellen Show, to
Whoa.
uh, getting Rory Rosegarten as his manager, who managed Robert Klein and Brian Regan and Ray Romano and all that. And his career really took off, and it was a long, hard road to get to, and the payoff was amazing, and that was really good. And the best, most amazing time was when McCartney was on, and I got to talk to McCartney, and I got to sort of help with one of the segments on the show about the Michael Jackson story, and I brought that
Oh.
up, and then Michael Jackson had just died, and and I don't know if you could. It's funny because it's right next to the my desk here. I don't know if it's gonna go on, but here,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
you know, I there
Oh,
was
what a
in
great
the
shot.
commercial, and you always see the back of my head. It's always like I have all these pictures of me and people, and it's the back of my head network. And John Philo, the great photographer, was over at Letterman, but I never tried to get in photos. I didn't like turn around, but every once in a while he'd surprise me after a show and say, "Oh, here's a picture of you and this person, or you and this person," and and there was the step up, so I always look shorter because I'm down one
Because
step
they're on the
below that.
riser, yeah.
But I was up at the desk, and Dave walked away and went over to talk to Gaines and Rob Burnett or whoever they were talking to at the time, and I'm at the desk alone with Paul, and then they snapped the picture. And like I was mentioning, the guy who snapped the picture, John Philo, who took all our pictures, is the photographer of the famous Four Dead in Ohio picture from shooting in Kent State. You
The
know,
newspaper headline photo.
yeah.
Wow.
And so, and he, like I said, everyone at the Letterman show was the best of the best. So our team photographer was John Philo, genius Pulitzer Prize winner, photographer. And he was able to get the back of my head every time really nicely.
You're great. Well, I have to assume that the Beatles were special to you, right? I mean, I don't know anyone from. I just don't know anyone that whatever. Were the Beatles special to you?
They were very special to me. My whole family. I was born in New York, and then I moved to Florida for junior high school and high school, and back college in Boston, and then back to New York. A little time, about 3 years, New York and LA, back and forth. So it's a quick story, but a quick map of where I lived. But when I lived in Brooklyn as a little kid, my parents were very young, and they loved rock and roll, and there was always music in our house, and we would go to see concerts that so like the Ike and Tina Turner concerts and all this stuff that my parents were so young that they took me to these concerts, and and we would watch the Ed Sullivan Show, and who was on, we heard about the Beatles, and our house was full of Beatles music, and so when the Beatles were on, and it was so mesmerizing. I guess, let's see, so they were on in '64, right? Was their first appearance?
I think so
'63.
because they came here and did the last the Shea Stadium thing in '63.
63, okay. Yeah, 62 was when they had Love Me Do. So anyway, they did the show, and I was not 5 yet. I was born in '58, so they were probably I was like 4 and a half, and I just fell in love with this band. They were just mesmerizing. And I asked my dad if I can grow my hair like that, and he was like, "Look, no, those are wigs." And he's he got me out of of doing that, of having that, and eventually I did have hair like that, but
I think
it was
everybody
great.
did. I think that's the
Yeah,
way it went. Those Beatles really took off.
yeah, they did okay. So to be on that stage, I also loved Elvis Presley, and I used to do an Elvis Presley impression. And it's a very long story that I won't share at this time, but I once saved people's lives by doing an Elvis Presley impression. There was a theater that people thought there was a bomb scare earlier in the day, in the night, and the people left. It was cleaned out. They went back in, and then there was a blackout from Miami to Fort Lauderdale. So people thought they were going to be blown up in this darkness, and again, it's too long to make the story make sense. But I grabbed a bullhorn and went, "No, since my baby left me," and the people were like, they were panicking, but they heard Elvis Presley in a bullhorn, and they were like, "Huh?" It was sort of like, they stopped the panic, and ladies and gentlemen, and they couldn't see me, so I didn't care. It was pitch black, and I said, "Look, it's a blackout. Don't worry. No, everyone's going to be fine." And we stopped the stampede. But I loved Elvis Presley, so the Elvis Presley was on that stage, and I loved the Supremes, and they were on that
Oh
stage.
my
We were
God.
a real Motown house, so, and we watched the Ed Sullivan Show all the time. So to be on that stage, and oh God, what a dream come true.
Oh, that is the coolest. I hope that you'll do this again. I mean, we got to stop. I'm conscientious. I know it's late on the East, but I hope that
Oh
you'll
no,
do this
it's
again.
late. Are you kidding me? I just woke up from a nap. I'll be up till like 3 or 4 in the morning. But it's okay. I know you have a life and you want to get to it. So, but I've had
I,
a
I
bite
hope
to
this is.
eat. I've
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was
I
going
was
to
going to
say
say
this
I
feels a
took a
little bit
nap.
like
I
the.
had a bite to eat,
This is
and
the
I'm
worst.
I'm ready to. I'm awake now, so it's okay.
All right. Well, I feel like this has been a little bit like the Chris Farley show, where I've just been like, and tell me about this, and tell me about that, and I want to know about this.
No, don't
Uh,
don't worry about it. Please don't apologize.
well, I'm
it's
very
it's
grateful
all
for your
good.
time. We are. I hope that you'll come back. In the meantime, how do people follow you? Is there anything to plug coming up? Let's do
It's
some
interesting
commerce.
because there's two major productions that I'm going to one executive produce and one produce. That fingers crossed, everybody, that it happens. It'll be really fun. One's comedy, one's music.
Oh,
I got stand-up gigs here and there. Got some big theater we're doing, in me and Caroline Ray and Nick Griffin in September. We just booked that the other day, and we're starting to book all these big things. But you can go to at Eddie Comic at Instagram.
perfect.
Excuse me. There's and on Facebook I'm under Eddie Brill, and but there's no room for friends, but you can follow. And if you
Yeah.
follow, pretty much I write these stories, and I do these long stories, and I put them on Facebook, and they're kind of fun. And that was the one we talked about earlier on the show about the guy going, "Yeah, it looks like I have to get off the stage, but you don't want me to leave, do you?" "Yes, we want you to leave." No, so go to Eddie Brill at Facebook or Eddie_Brill at Twitter, which I don't really get involved in Twitter except for I try to write funny one-liners, as often as I can. I stick them on Twitter, but Eddie Comic at Instagram. A lot of my photography, all this kind of stuff. I do a lot of different crazy things: photography, music. I write songs. I just try to keep being creative and staying awake. That's my other
Are
hobby.
are any of these future projects going to bring you out to the West Coast, where it's possible you might be here in person and we could do this,
Well, if
live?
I'm coming in person, I'm coming to Alameda in October. There's a club called the Alameda Comedy Club that I helped design, and it's a
Oh,
beautiful club, I must say. And so
yes.
I
If I
definitely come
don't,
out
if I
there.
don't, don't mind if I
If I
say
must
this.
promote myself, you know why I love it so much is because as a comedian, I made sure that everything a comedian dreamt of was the way the stage was low, it was big, the sound was great, the lights were great, we had devices on the table so the audience was never yelling out to the waitresses. We have a
Yes.
kitchen with amazing food. I mean, helped create this with my friend Patrick, who's the owner, this incredible club, and it's really fun. So I'm there in October, and I usually go up to Grass Valley to my friend's farm, do some stand up in that area. But I might come down to LA. I'm not sure. My son just moved back to the East Coast, and I used to go out there all the time to see him. But we'll
Oh.
see. If I come out there, um, I'd like to do it live. I'd love to sit in the chairs again and all that stuff.
And for your son, let's give a shameless plug to your boy there. What's your son's name? He's a comedian as well.
His name is Dan Madonia, Madonia. I didn't know I had a son until he was just about 12, and we have the most incredible friendship and love and life, and sharing love for hockey as well, and love of the Beatles. And he's a brilliant actor, comedian, musician, and he just got cast by Tarantino in something, and
Holy
he's
cow.
a very, very talented. And we do stand up together as much as we can, and so his name is Dan Madonia, Madonia, like Madonna, but there's an I instead of the N. So, and he's a very I'm very proud of him. He's very, very good at what he does, and my friends think he's great, which makes me happy because of course I'm prejudiced, but
Yeah, it's not just Dad saying so. That's wonderful.
Right.
Thank you so much again, Eddie Brill. I can't wait to do this in person. I'm going to hold you to that, even if we have to drive up there and bring you down.
all right, that's fine. We can take the tour of the theater.
In the meantime, I love you. We all love you at home. Please love one another. Thursday, we're back here with Thursday's going to be an interesting show. It's going to be heavy on the cars. It's going to be a Cat DeLorean show, but we're going to be interviewing someone else. It's going to be pretty interesting. But daughter of John DeLorean, Catherine DeLorean, will be here, and we're going to be starting the DeLorean Legacy podcast, but we're going to start it on this show. It should be interesting. It'll be an experiment. We'll see what happens.
It's interesting because we didn't talk about cars. We didn't talk about cars except the Chevy, that Chrysler LeBaron that I had back then. But it's weird. Here's a car show, and I'm going. I haven't owned a car since I'm 17. I drive all the time. I rent them. I love cars. Who doesn't really? But I love them so much. But I don't have one.
I'm pretty excited.
Over at the Avis shop.
But you are aware of cars, and you probably know some names.
I've
and
heard
stuff.
of them.
We're pretty excited. We're getting our first official press car next week. It's going to be delivered on Tuesday, and we're starting with the A's. Any guesses on what it might be?
An automobile? No.
Yes,
It's,
yes.
Ding 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 ding. Let's see. It's the Aardvark, the Alamo,
He's going through the
down
encyclopedia.
list.
We are starting with
American Airlines.
We're starting with Aston Martin, thanks to our friends at Aston Martin.
Oh,
we're going to be
my God,
we're going to be
that's
starting
amazing.
with the Vantage F1, and that'll be delivered on Tuesday. And can't wait, so excited. So
Yeah, me too.
so get down here and I'll give you a ride.
All right, I will. That would be great.
All right, I love you. We love everybody else. Please love one another. Back on Thursday with Kat, and we'll see you out there. Thank you for watching. Tom Snyder is next. Good night, everybody.